dip. Everything tells us the category they're in, the general market they're in, is strong. So as long as they don't lose customers, it should be kind of back to business as usual.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the cost of cybercrime at about $9.5 trillion for the year, and maybe $10.5 trillion in 2025, you can see why investors are pretty bullish on the fact that this company is going to be able to drive that revenue. And as long as they can, the other side of it is that they have launched new software to kind of combat this in the future. And as long as they can kind of prove that going forward, this is something that investors should not be concerned about, and that they can handle the litigation side of it without any real, headwind.
Hey, Tim, can you scooch horizontally to your right just a little bit? That's good, thank you.
Over the outage, I think that's largely baked in, that's kind of behind the stock. But again, this quarter, what we hear from the company is going to be extremely important this quarter.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jeff. A good perspective there. Like that. CrowdStrike 363.61 this morning. Tim Biggin, options strategist at Buy Alerts. Looking at the shares, looking at the options rather, Tim. So CrowdStrike came back. What do you think? Do they deserve it?
Yeah, it's kind of a what crisis, It's like what happened is completely erased here, but I think there will be some effects, certainly, from that, mid-July sort of, problema, we'll call it here. But you can see on the chart, the stock has absolutely ripped higher after making that big-time low there. So I think it's getting a little overdone to the upside, not only on a technical basis, certainly the stock getting overbought as it approaches those highs there, but on a valuation basis, you talked about, sales, but we're looking at a stock that is now trading 25 times price to sales, so built absolutely for speed here. I think unless they knock it out of the park, you may see kind of a pullback towards that 20-day moving average, which is right around 330. That also equates to the expected market maker move of a little over 9% based on the option prices on the stock. So I'm just taking a cautiously bearish stance here, selling this week's 330 puts, buying next week's 330 puts, paying a little bit under $1.50 here. Just as importantly, selling over 100 IV, hedging with under a 70 IV. So have that nice term structure vol edge, have a nice P&L sort of range here from under 300 to over 370. This trade should work out profitably. So unless we get a massive move, that flattening of the term structure vol will actually be as big a benefit as hopefully a slight pullback towards that 330 level as well.
All right. So I think that's a pretty decent approach because you give yourself some flexibility on it.
Yeah, you always want to have, flexibility in these trades, certainly. And as I get older, I'm losing flexibility in other forms as well. But also next week, you can certainly turn it into a vertical of some sort to bring in even more premium, defray that kind of low cost to begin with. So I don't mind paying $1.50 or so for a earnings-based calendar spread trade on a stock that's pushing towards the 400 level. So a very cheap comparative trade to begin with as well. So I think CrowdStrike probably has gotten a little euphoric here just based on the fact that everyone's completely forgotten kind of about the previous issues. I think they will have some meaning still and probably put a little bit of an overhang post-earnings in the stock price going forward from here.
All right. So the put calendar and CrowdStrike at 362 right now. Where's your celebration point, Tim? What's the perfect level for this if you want to just close the whole thing out?
Yeah, anywhere towards that 330, strike would be ideal here. So between really 340 and 320 would be a beautiful spot post earnings, and we'll absolutely jump in and take all, if not some of it off there, and realize a very nice kind of probably a 4 or 5 bagger if it gets to that point as well.
All right. I feel CrowdStrike is in a pretty good spot. If you ask me, I don't think it's going to get hit like that. But if you are bearish, I like the approach and the way you're going through the trade. And just also recognizing kind of the skew and the options bias to the upside. So respect the fade. Thanks,
Yep.
Tim.
You bet.
Yep.
Anytime. Take care now.
I appreciate that, Tim Bigham. Option strategist at Buy Alerts. Let's talk ETFs when we return. Take